What is going on, presenting here back with another Honkai style video, and we do have some changes regarding the 3.4 characters. So mainly just PHAINON and also the Fate characters. So I'm going to be going over them, briefly talk about what they are. I won't be going over what they are exactly, but in general you will be able to tell. It's very easy info you can find on the internet. With this video you still will know what they do. Hopefully these V5 changes are good because, you know, it's been quite a ride, this beta at least. So yeah, before I get to the video, drop a like, drop a sub, hit the button for future videos like this, and let's get straight into it. So as usual, disclaimer, this is info circulating the internet, so take it all with the grain of salt, and the best thing you can do is to wait for the actual official live stream or when the characters are officially in the game when 3.4 does release, as that will be their finalized kits, along with any other changes that might happen, at least until, you know, many years from now, probably until they get buffed. So again, take all this with a grain of salt. So for PHAINON, when it does come to his base kit, it seems like everything was the same except for his actual stats. Seems like his base HP was reduced by a bit, but his base attack was buffed and his base defense was reduced. The base attack buff is really good because he had probably the lowest base attack of the 5 stars, which is actually insane. Considering he's a DPS, the fact that he had lower actual base attack than some like HP scaling characters and such was insane, so the fact we got an increase to that is going to be very good. The next change is to his E1 is now the actual extra turn speed increase for the base speed is now a big amount previously. So, you know, better than previously is what I mean. And for everyone you kill in the actual battle, it gets an increase by a certain amount. That's a bit lower than what it was previously, very little, and goes up to an even higher amount of around 84%. So you start with more, you get a bit slower stacks, but you're able to actually still get up to a higher buff once you do fully stack it, which is going to be really good. So he is able to have a lot more turns with that. It's better than what it was previously, so that's going to be really good. And that, unfortunately, is really it for his PHAINON. It's pretty much just making his E1 better than what it was before, and also fixing the fact that he had an abysmal actual base attack. Not the exact changes that everyone was looking for, but you know, hey, a buff is a buff. Now for the actual Fate characters. So first, leading it off with Saber. So the skill at the end where you're able to immediately gain some stacks of the things that she did have was increased by 1, so that's going to be good for her stack generation on that when you do have that proc. Her talent, or her trace 2 I mean mainly, the one that gave you energy if you were below a certain amount of energy, which was like around 40%. Previously, if you were below 40, you can go up to 40. It has now been bumped up by 20%. So if you don't have 60% energy, you're able to reach it at the 60, so that's going to be better because now you can start with even closer to your first ultimate. Her E1 was changed to where now instead of when her turn ends, she's able to gain a stack of the things she does have, and is now rather when using a basic attack and skill, so technically makes it easier to get overall. Her E6 does seem like it also got a new actual little effect increase, which is going to let her get overflow energy able to be accumulated by her trace, increasing up to 200. So a new effect on the E6, you know, buffing Iron Lungs, we love to see it. So if you're going up to that, which is probably a lot of people considering, you know, Fate collab for, you know, a very hype IP, so big thing. So those are the overall changes for her. And when now it does come to the last character of these changes being Archer. His talent did get a new form of tech saying if someone was defeated before his follow-up attack is launched, it will be directed to a random enemy instead, you know, the usual stuff. But he did receive a nerf to where his main source of damage being his skill, the multiplier of that one designated enemy in the beginning was reduced by around 40%. Which is going to hurt because, you know, it's his main source of damage and it's the one you're spamming a lot, so I don't know how that's going to be really anything. I think it was fine as it is, so getting nerfed is kind of sad. But yeah, that is the actual final changes to all these characters. So PHAINON unfortunately didn't really get the fixed, like, you know, feeling clunky and all that kind of stuff. Assuming that this V5 is going to be the last changes because, you know, it's practically never that a V6 will happen. So PHAINON actually fixing his basic attack is going to be pretty nice because he had a really bad base attack. So the fact that that is now fixed is going to be really good because, you know, the whole thing about having a base attack is very important. Because obviously that's going to amplify with all the attack percent buffs you can get, your relics, you know, a lot of attack percent other sources such as relic sets, planet ornaments, so on. And having a low base attack does make that a lot more difficult, so he wouldn't be able to reach attacks that he should. And, you know, having a character like this have a lower base attack than majority of the game is actually just absurd. So I don't really know what they were thinking when they decided to, you know, bump up his max HP. Like, survivability was really the issue because you weren't able to sustain this anyways. So the fact that they did actually end up giving him more base attack is going to be good. I don't actually know how it compares to the rest of the game with this extra amount he did get. But I'm going to assume it is at least puts him to a point where it's better than what it was previously because, you know, anything was better than what it was previously. And then the E1 change, you know, allowing you to get more base speed, allowing your actual extra turns to get more turns, lol. That's also going to be good because the actual change he got before this was kind of bad, and it was like, you know, it wasn't bad, I guess. It was still a good dupe overall, but, you know, better than what it was previously. It wasn't that, unfortunately. It started good, then they kind of ruined it a bit, and then it got good again. So at least now his E1 returned back to a point where it's actually going to be probably really commonly got if you do go for PHAINON. Most people will probably go for his E1 because of that speed increase you can get for the extra turns and also the base speed increase. So E1 is going to be very good, especially for zero cycles and such, so that's going to be nice. But overall, you know, the issue of getting his ultimate, if you're not able to clear it within the first ultimate or whatever you're doing, then getting back to it is going to be really annoying. The whole clunkiness regarding that, unfortunately, that doesn't seem like it's going to get changed. And so, PHAINON mains, I hope you guys are doing well. And then for Saber, on the other hand, all the stuff she did get was actually just, you know, good stuff all around, as pure buffs. Extra effect on her E6, you know, the actual E1 being her basic deck and skill now is going to be good. The extra stack you can get in her skill at the very end is going to be really nice because, you know, more stacks are more stacks. And then also starting with more energy than you would previously. So previously being 40 and now actually 60%. So starting with more energy is obviously going to be a good thing. She was already relatively strong. I think she did release in the state that she did already have. Was probably going to be fine. Again, she was like, you know, doing good damage, able to get ultimate a lot, had all the stacks. The actual overall damage she did was still good. So with these changes, she's going to be even better. And then when it does come to Archer, it is pretty unfortunate he did get that nerf to his actual skill, as it was the main source of damage, as you practically just hit him with the Armed and Dangerous again and again. It's pretty unfortunate how that main source of damage was reduced because now overall his potential is going to be less. The damage output you can with his, like, you know, optimal team and a proper setup was still really good on that skill, but, you know, single target is infinitely harder to use nowadays, especially with how AoE centric it is, and by it I mean the game. So hopefully this won't hurt him too much to the point where it makes it to like where he's like really just not too good to run, especially with how many people may not own Sparkle or already using his supports on other teams. So the actual lesser good options for him are going to be even worse now because they don't have him get to the damage that makes him good. I still think he'll probably do fine. This is definitely still going to impact him because, you know, 40% to his overall damage of that actual attack. Just losing that 40% is just going to be a big noticeable decrease. But let's hope it doesn't, you know, significantly impact him because it did. We already know when this happened, you know, right before Anoxa released, he got a slight actual damage multiplier decrease. And that was actually a pretty noticeable change because he was already doing a lot of damage, and that, like, I think he only lost like 10 to 15%, and it was actually quite noticeable. And now someone like Archer getting a 40% decrease is definitely going to hit his damage hard. But again, let's just hope it doesn't actually get to the point where it's going to make him bad, which I doubt. But anyway, that's the whole video. Again, disclaimer, take all this with a grain of salt as it could be changed right before the actual official game releases. Best thing you can do is to wait for when they are added into the official game and have their official kits, because that will be what they finalized are. That's not English, but you know I'm leaving it in there anyways. But yeah, again, take it all with a grain of salt. Anyway, that's the actual video. If these end up being the finalized kits, let me know if you guys are still going to be hyped for them. Peace out.